Welcome to another deep dive, everybody. And today, we're going someplace pretty fantastical. We're going to explore the origins and nature of dragons.
Ooh.
But hold on, we're not going to those typical mythology books.
Right.
Our source material this time, a transcript from a hypnotic regression session.
Wow.
So what do you think about that, hypnotic regression, I mean?
Well, I think the really fascinating thing about hypnotic regression is that it kind of taps into that subconscious, right? Bringing forth memories and experiences that are kind of hidden otherwise.
Yeah.
So while we approach this source with a healthy dose of skepticism, it does offer some pretty interesting nuggets, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It's almost like we're I don't know, like archaeologists of the mind.
Yeah.
Sifting through those layers of subconscious memories to see what we can find, you know?
Absolutely.
And this session, let me tell you, this session is a gold mine of curious details.
Yeah.
For starters, it claims that dragons, as we imagine them, weren't a product of natural evolution. They were created, like in a lab setting.
Oh, wow. Well, if we're imagining this lab as like this high-tech incubator, it really raises questions about the level of technology involved, right?
Yeah.
Were these creators using something we can understand, like genetic engineering,
Yeah.
or was it something we can't even fathom?
Right. And here's where it gets even wilder.
Yeah.
According to the session, these weren't just any lab-grown creatures.
Yeah.
They were genetically engineered using dinosaur and reptilian DNA.
It's like Jurassic Park meets ancient mythology with a little bit of advanced science thrown in.
Dash, yeah.
It makes you think about just how persistent these reptilian dragon-like images have been across cultures and throughout history,
Yeah.
from those ancient Chinese dragons to the wyverns of European folklore. These creatures, powerful serpentine creatures, they just seem to hold such a resonance in the human psyche.
Okay, so we've got these genetically engineered dinosaur reptilian hybrids, right?
Yeah.
But who are the masterminds?
Yeah.
Who was behind this?
Right.
And the session introduces us to the Draconians, the creators of
The
dragons.
Draconians, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the term itself, it makes you think of Draco Malfoy from Harry Potter. And there's a reason these names resonate. So let's explore who these Draconians are, according to the session, and why the idea of a powerful reptilian being has captivated us for so many centuries.
And importantly, the session makes a clear distinction. Draconians are not dragons.
Okay, good point, yeah.
They're described as, like, the architects, the highly intelligent beings who orchestrated this whole dragon creation project.
Right. And the session paints them as a highly structured, hierarchical society where order is valued above all else.
Yeah.
So imagine a civilization where everything has its place, every individual knows their role, and any deviation from that established order, it's met with swift and decisive action.
So think super organized, maybe even a little rigid. And the session suggests that while they were technologically advanced, they weren't leaps and bounds ahead of other extraterrestrial civilizations that we've, talked about in past deep dives.
Right, so it was more about their methodical, calculated approach that really set them apart, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think so.
And we see this meticulousness, reflected in the way they design their dragon experiment.
Okay, let's talk about the dragons themselves. The session goes into some detail about their physical characteristics. Yeah. And here's where it gets really visually stunning.
Okay.
Apparently, these weren't just your average one-size-fits-all dragons.
Right.
We're talking a spectrum of colors. White, green, red, blue, even gold.
Wow.
It wasn't just about the aesthetics, though. The session claims that the color of the dragon actually signified its status
Okay.
and its energy absorption abilities.
It's like a dragon hierarchy.
Yeah, think of it like that, like with each color denoting a specific rank and a corresponding level of power.
Wow, so like a rainbow ranking system for dragons.
I'm picturing like a dragon court with all these vibrant colors on display. It must have been really something.
Yeah.
But what did this energy absorption thing actually entail?
Yeah.
Were these dragons solar powered or something?
It seems that way. The session describes them as drawing energy directly from the sun,
Really?
absorbing it through their skin.
Wow.
No need for food or any other conventional fuel source.
So they were basically living, breathing solar panels.
Yeah, in essence, that's what they were.
That's pretty wild. So all those myths about fire-breathing dragons, could they have been witnessing I don't know, like an energy release rather than actual flames.
That is a fascinating link. It really makes you think about how ancient cultures, often separated by vast distances,
Right.
all developed myths about dragons.
Yeah.
Could it be that these energy-absorbing creatures, if they existed, left a similar imprint on the human imagination across the globe?
And speaking of imprints, let's talk about those gold dragons for a second.
Yeah.
According to the session, they were the top tier,
Right.
the elite of the dragon world,
Mm.
known for their rapid regeneration abilities.
Yeah, they were the most efficient at absorbing and utilizing solar energy, which might explain that golden sheen
Yeah.
and their ability to heal so quickly.
Imagine, like, a being that could harness the power of the sun to repair its wounds almost instantly.
Talk about a superpower.
Right.
But if the gold dragons were the A-listers, what about the rest of the colors?
Yeah.
Were they just the background extras in this Grand Dragon experiment?
Well, according to the session, not at all. Each color had its own set of characteristics and perhaps even specialized roles.
Really?
The darker colors, like brown and gray, were described as being more primitive.
So maybe less efficient at energy absorption.
Yeah, or less adaptable to Earth's environment.
So maybe those were the dragons that ended up getting lost. Low on energy, you know, and less able to keep up with the group.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder how these different colors might have influenced human perception.
Yeah.
Like, would a bright, shining gold dragon, would it evoke awe,
Right.
reverence, while a dark, shadowy one might inspire fear or dread?
Almost like a built-in color-coded system for how humans would react to these creatures.
Yeah, something like that.
And if the Draconians were intentionally creating these different types of dragons, it really does suggest a level of planning, a desire to see how these variations would interact with each other, with Earth's environment and its inhabitants.
It's like they were conducting a series of elaborate experiments, observing the results and gathering data on dragon behavior and adaptation.
Right.
Maybe even human reactions to these strange and powerful creatures.
Precisely. But here's where the story takes another intriguing turn. The session indicates that the Draconians weren't acting alone in this dragon creation endeavor. They had help from another, even more mysterious, extraterrestrial race.
Hold on, a multi-species collaboration on dragon creation.
That's right.
This is getting even more fascinating. Who are these mystery partners?
Well, the session's a bit vague on the specifics.
Yeah.
It only hints at their involvement and mentions a possible resemblance to the Pleiadians.
Pleiadians.
Yeah.
Now, that's a name that rings a bell. We've deep dived into them before. Remember that whole connection to human evolution and ancient civilizations?
Exactly.
Wow.
And if we link that to the dragon creation story, well, it starts to paint a rather fascinating picture. Multiple alien races,
Right.
potentially with their own agendas, working together or perhaps competing to shape the course of events on Earth.
Okay, I am officially hooked.
Good.
We've got lab-grown dragons, a rigid yet technologically adept alien civilization, and now another species enters the scene, possibly those enigmatic Pleiadians. I can't wait to unpack what happens next.
And trust me, you won't be disappointed. The session goes on to describe the complexities of Draconian society, their motivations for creating dragons, and the challenges they faced in this grand experiment. It even hints at historical interactions between humans and dragons, offering a unique perspective on some of our most enduring myths and legends. So, buckle up, because we're just getting started on this deep dive.
So we have this incredible collaboration of the Draconians with their focus on order and these Pleiadian-like beings who we know have been associated with ideas of spiritual evolution and advancement. It really makes you wonder, what was the dynamic like between those two groups?
Yeah, it's fascinating to consider. You have the Draconians, very methodical, structured, with a clear goal in mind, and then you have the Pleiadians, often depicted as more ethereal, focused on consciousness and growth. You can almost imagine the board meetings came.
Oh, yeah, right. I'm picturing a very sleek, minimalist conference room for the Draconians. You know, all sharp angles and chrome.
Right.
And for the Pleiadians, maybe something more like a lush garden with holographic projections of star systems shimmering in the background.
Exactly. Two very different styles coming together for this audacious project. And speaking of audacious, let's get back to the nuts and bolts of dragon creation. We know they were genetically engineered, splicing dinosaur and reptilian DNA, But the session also mentions that the process wasn't exactly smooth sailing.
Right, it says something about the dragons having a low durability factor.
Yeah.
What does that even mean? Were these dragons delicate like fine china?
Well, the session doesn't really delve into the specifics of dragon physiology, but if we think about it in terms of genetics, it could mean that the combination of dinosaur and reptilian DNA resulted in some unforeseen vulnerabilities.
Okay.
Perhaps they were susceptible to certain environmental factors, or maybe their immune systems weren't as robust as the Draconians had hoped.
So not exactly the invincible beasts of legend we often imagine, but it makes sense if you think about it. Genetic engineering is a complex process, even with our current technology. And we're talking about an alien civilization working with extinct creatures trying to create something entirely new.
Mm.
There are bound to be some kinks to work out.
Exactly. It highlights the inherent challenges of manipulating life on such a fundamental level, even for a species as advanced as the Draconians.
So we've got these somewhat fragile dragons soaking up the sun's energy, but the session also drops this intriguing tidbit about the Draconians not being as technologically advanced as other alien species. How does that square with the whole genetic engineering feat?
It is interesting, isn't it? Perhaps their technology wasn't as flashy or expansive as some other civilizations, but maybe they were masters of bioengineering, focusing their resources on manipulating life forms rather than developing interstellar spaceships or planet-busting weapons.
Okay, so less Star Wars, more like a super advanced biology lab. But it still makes you wonder if they weren't as technologically advanced overall. How did they even get to Earth in the first place? And how were they transporting these dragons around? Were they packing them up in little space pods?
Well, unfortunately, the session doesn't really provide those logistical details,
Yeah.
but it's fun to imagine, isn't it? Maybe they had mastered some form of interdimensional travel, or perhaps their spaceships were more like organic vessels grown rather than constructed.
All right, I'm picturing giant bioluminescent space slugs gliding through the cosmos with their precious dragon cargo. But let's get back to those different dragon colors for a moment. We know they had a pecking order with the gold dragons at the top. What about the rest? Did they all just get along, or was there some dragon drama going on?
Well, the session doesn't explicitly mention any interdragon conflict, but if we consider that the different colors represented varying levels of energy absorption and perhaps even different temperaments, it's not hard to imagine that some friction might have arisen.
Right. Imagine you're a brown dragon struggling to soak up enough sun while a gold dragon next to you is practically glowing with energy. I'd be a little envious, and maybe those differing energy levels played a role in how humans perceive them. Perhaps a low-energy dragon might be more prone to aggression, needing to compensate for its lack of power, while a high-energy dragon could afford to be more benevolent, even playful.
It's a fascinating possibility, and it connects to how these creatures have been portrayed throughout history. You have dragons who are fearsome guardians hoarding treasure, and then you have dragons who are wise, even helpful, guiding heroes on quests or protecting sacred places. Perhaps those differences in temperament were, at least in part, tied to their energy levels.
And maybe those energy levels tied to the color variations were all part of the Draconians' grand experiment, testing different versions to see how they'd adapt and interact with Earth's environment and its inhabitants.
Exactly. It's like they were trying to create a diverse ecosystem of dragons, each with its own strengths and weaknesses, its own role to play in this grand scheme. But here's where things take a rather dramatic turn. The session indicates that the Draconians at some point decided to abandon their dragon experiment.
Wait, what? They just packed up and left these dragons to fend for themselves? Why would they do that?
Well, the session only offers hints, but it suggests that the project might have become too unwieldy. Perhaps the dragons were more challenging to control than they had anticipated, or maybe their partnership with the Pleiadian-like beings hit a snag.
So it wasn't just about creating dragons, it was about managing them, understanding their potential impact on Earth, and navigating the complexities of interspecies collaboration. It sounds like things got a little too complicated even for the Draconians with their love of order.
It seems that way, but their departure raises another question. What happened to all those dragons once their creators left the scene? Did they simply vanish, or did they continue to roam the earth, leaving their mark on human history and mythology?
Well, if those ancient myths and legends are anything to go by, they definitely didn't just disappear. We have tales of dragons battling heroes, guarding treasure, even offering wisdom and guidance. Perhaps those stories are echoes of a time when these creatures were more prevalent, interacting with humans in ways we can only imagine.
It's a tantalizing thought, isn't it, to think that those fantastical tales might have a kernel of truth, a connection to a time when humans and dragons shared this planet?
But if the Draconians left, what about the Pleiadians? Did they stick around, and what was their take on this whole dragon experiment going sideways. I'm guessing they weren't too thrilled about leaving these potentially powerful creatures to their own devices.
Well, the session unfortunately doesn't provide much insight into the Pleiadians' perspective or their subsequent actions, but it does offer some intriguing hints about the Draconians' motivations for creating dragons in the first place. And it's not just about scientific curiosity or testing Earth's suitability for habitation. It seems they had a much grander and perhaps more unsettling agenda in mind.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What were these Draconians really up to? Were they planning to use these dragons for something, maybe some kind of intergalactic conquest?
Well, let's delve into those draconian motivations and see what we can uncover. The session suggests that their civilization was heavily focused on expansion, on finding new worlds to inhabit and perhaps to control.
So it wasn't just about science, it was about power, about expanding their dominion across the stars. And maybe they saw dragons as a tool to achieve those ambitions, like some kind of advanced bioengineered army.
It's certainly a possibility, isn't it, to imagine these powerful creatures being used as a vanguard, a way to test the defenses of other worlds before the Draconians themselves made their move. It adds a whole new layer of complexity to their dragon creation project.
It also makes their decision to abandon the experiment even more perplexing. If you were truly driven by expansion and conquest, why would they just leave these potentially valuable assets behind? Were they forced to retreat, or did they have a change of heart?
The session doesn't provide clear answers, but it does hint at a possible power struggle. Perhaps a clash with another alien race. Maybe even those same Pleiadian-like beings who helped them create the dragons in the first place.
It's like a cosmic mystery unfolding before our very eyes. We've got these ambitious Draconians, they're genetically engineered dragons, and now the possibility of conflict with other extraterrestrial forces. This is getting good.
It certainly is, and as we delve deeper into the session's account, we'll explore those potential conflicts, the Draconians' motivations, and the ultimate fate of those dragons they left behind. It's a story that spans millennia, weaving together ancient myths, advanced technology, and the enduring mystery of our place in the cosmos.
So we've got these Draconians with these huge ambitions for expanding their territory, possibly even using dragons as their pawns across the stars. But if they were so focused on order and control, I mean, how do you even reconcile that with the inherent, wildness and unpredictability of dragons?
Well, that's a great question. It's almost like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, isn't it? You have these beings who crave structure, who want everything in its place, and then they're trying to manage these creatures that embody chaos and primal energy. I mean, it seems like a recipe for disaster.
I know, right? Like trying to train a volcano to erupt on schedule. But maybe that's why they abandoned the experiment. Maybe they realized that dragons, just by their very nature, couldn't be fully controlled.
It's certainly possible, but there's another piece of the story that we haven't really explored yet, and that's the draconian connection to art. The session suggests they had a hand in shaping human artistic expression.
Wait, really? These rigid, order-obsessed Draconians were meddling in art? That seems like a total mismatch.
Doesn't it? You wouldn't exactly picture a draconian attending a gallery opening or critiquing a modern dance performance.
No.
But that's what makes this connection so fascinating. It challenges our assumptions about what creativity looks like and where it comes from.
So how did they do it? Were they, like, whispering inspiration into the ears of unsuspecting artists? Or were they using some kind of mind control technology to manipulate creative output?
Well, the session doesn't get into specifics about their methods, but it does suggest that their influence was more subtle, perhaps working through dreams, intuitions, or even those subconscious impulses.
So instead of dictating, specific artworks, they were trying to shape the overall direction of human artistic expression, nudging us towards certain themes or styles or narratives that aligned with their agenda.
Exactly. And if we think back to their focus on expansion and finding new worlds to inhabit, it makes you wonder if they were trying to subtly prepare humanity for their eventual arrival.
Okay, now that's a little creepy. So instead of spaceships and lasers, they were using art as their weapon of choice.
It's a thought-provoking idea, isn't it?
It's like a cosmic PR campaign designed to win over the hearts and minds of humanity before the Draconians even set foot on Earth. But here's another thought. If the Draconians were trying to shape human perception through art, what about the Pleiadians? Were they just sitting back and watching, or did they have their own artistic agenda?
That's an excellent point. We know that the Pleiadians have been associated with ideas of spiritual growth, harmony, and connection. So it's not unreasonable to think that they might have been trying to counter the Draconians' influence, perhaps inspiring artists to create works that emphasize those values.
So it's like this cosmic tug of war with the Draconians pulling us towards order and control, while the Pleiadians are trying to guide us towards love and connection.
Exactly. And caught in the middle is humanity absorbing these influences, expressing them through our art, our music, our stories.
It really makes you wonder if every great work of art, every inspiring song, every epic tale is a reflection of this cosmic battle for our hearts and minds.
It's certainly a possibility, and as we continue to explore, the world of art mythology and ancient mysteries, it's worth considering those hidden influences, the subtle forces that might be shaping our perception of reality.
So where does that leave us? We've got these fascinating but ultimately abandoned dragons. We have the Draconians with their ambitions for expansion and their, fondness for subtle manipulation. And then we have the Pleiadians, their motivations, still a bit of a mystery, but perhaps offering a counterbalance to the Draconians' more controlling tendencies.
And at the center of it all is humanity caught in this cosmic web of influence, expressing it all through our creativity, our stories, our search for meaning in a universe full of wonder and mystery.
I don't know about you, but it makes me want to go back and look at all the art I've ever seen, all the myths I've ever heard, and wonder about the hidden forces that might have inspired them.
Yeah, and perhaps as you explore those mysteries, you'll find your own unique connection to this cosmic dance, this interplay of energies and influences that have shaped our world and continue to inspire our imagination.
Well, that's it for this deep dive into the world of dragons, alien civilizations, and the mysteries of human creativity. But remember, this is just the beginning of the exploration. There are countless myths to uncover, ancient tales to decipher, and who knows, maybe even a few real-life dragons still lurking in the shadows. Keep searching, keep questioning, and keep that sense of wonder alive.